we are here to share 10 steps with you, okay, that we, from our experience working with in NewStore with OKRs, that we find that are the key steps to engage the leadership and the rest of the organization.
So the common approach when starting using OKRs and introducing OKRs is the crawl, walk, run, which was our guidance to begin with a smaller set of pilot teams trying to get OKRs right for them before scaling to the use of OKRs on the larger organization. It was very important to try to get the executive team from day one on board with us. We took a couple of cycles to move on. So when we got to the walk, we increased the number of pilot teams. And when we got to running, it took around 3 cycles of 3 months, so 3 quarters, to be able to start running. We believe that that's where we are at the moment. And it's the moment to start to go across more parts of the organization. But we decided to add the 4th step, which is the marathon, okay, where we have some bumps, we have some more work. And marathon for us, it's when we start actually using the OKR as the transformational tool it is, but sustainably across time. So this is not a 100 meters run, it's actually a marathon.
Okay, so going down to our 10 key steps. So we found out that accountability is key. Okay, so first we brought some experts to help us. We hired Bruce McCarthy from Product Culture. He's here today, he's our second speaker. But he helped us in understanding what are OKRs and how to kick this off and everything. Then we need to choose an internal team to help us, support this OKRs program at NewStore, and the Agility team, which Nuno and I am part of, was the team chosen with the support of the executives, of course. And then, our final step to begin with was to understand why are we doing OKRs at NewStore? What was the need and what are the benefits that we want to take from it? And this needs to be clear and come from the executive team so we can have, engagement.
So the second step is to have the executive involvement. So we should start with what we have, similar to the Kanban principle of start with what you do now. We picked up on what we were doing using the Advantage framework based on the book, The Advantage by Patrick Lencioni. And this helped us drive the vision and strategy for NewStore, which is really important as the starting point. You can see a couple of the questions. Why do we exist? What do we do? How will we succeed? At any given moment, the vision and strategy that this brought us was a really important first step. Next one was to actually have their support. OKRs is the company tool. It's not a one team thing or another team over there. So it's really important that the top management team leads by example. Then we define the company OKRs. We use OKRs, or the main reasons are because they should and do bring us focus, alignment, transparency, and shared success, which is actually one of our company values. The company OKRs are the big rock. So this is picking up on the metaphor on prioritization, the example of fitting the big rocks, pebbles, and sand on an empty jar. If you don't know it, go and check it out. And this, why it's so important to start with the company OKRs, because this is the points that we need transversal work to happen, collaboration between different parts of the company, the big rocks. So at our point, executive members are the owners of the company OKRs. They're the most empowered people to make this happen. Last but not least, it should help bring focus to the executive team. That's why we use the 3x3 matrix. So 3 objectives with max of 3 key results max, okay? This should bring focus. So it's very difficult when you run a company, independently of the size, but when we're talking almost 300 people, you get bombarded with so many issues to focus that this is just to try to help them understand what are the main big rocks that we need to move. Why 3? 3 is a magic number. It's easy enough, or it should be easy enough to remember, and we can have at least one executive lead one of these cross-functional OKRs.
Okay, and then open communication is also a key step for everything to work. Okay, so first, OKRs need to have a narrative attached to them. It's fundamental to give the context to explain the problem we are trying to solve with that OKR and for whom we are trying to solve it. It's also really important that we focus on answering the questions, why is this OKR important and why is it important right now? Then the second for open communication is to communicate draft OKRs. So this draft helps to get feedback from people around the company, and it helps the teams to start crafting their own OKRs. And then we need to communicate the OKR strategy. Okay, so over-communicate it. It's never enough to say over and over again what we want from OKRs and why do we have these OKRs and why now. So use different channels in different occasions. So as much as you can, over-communicate it.
The next one is teaching OKRs is key. So we started by defining a group of teams for the pilot. It can be a small area of the company, depending on the structure. It's really important that as part of this pilot, if possible, the executive or the leadership team are one of them. Then we started a small pilot. This small pilot can go from 3 to 4 teams, can actually last 2 to 3 cycles, as we mentioned before. This is already the walk part. Okay, so which cycle, if possible, we should be thinking about possibly adding more teams, dependent on the size of the company, the quantity of people you have actually to support this. Be careful with avoiding adding too many, because we still want to keep the quality part of this work. This will be good to experiment and learn a lot before running and moving to a lot of teams. Then OKRs, workshops are really important, but these workshops need to be by the learn by doing. So we need to teach teams to try to do the OKRs by doing their own together. Having hands-on OKRs, workshops with the pilot teams, then you can draft together the vision, the OKRs, the health metrics, all that's needed for them to do their first steps, while trying to come up with the team OKRs. We're already practicing the learn by doing.
And then aligning. You probably heard about OKRs a lot about cascading. We definitely don't agree that they cascade. So we rather think that they align. So it is important that, teams can align to the company OKRs, but if they don't, that's okay, because they can, align and unblock and contribute to other teams OKRs to help move those big rocks. So the first alignment that we did was the north-south alignment, or bottom top, or top bottom, as you want to call it. So when the draft for the company OKRs it's shared, it's not written in stone. Okay, this is a great opportunity for teams and people to give feedback and to help understand if the company big rocks are possible and what might be possible solutions or roadblocks or risks. And we can think about them and minimize them if that's the case. So as goals are set top down and bottom up, it helps on tapping the collective intelligence of the organization. And this actually helps with engagement, which is what we are talking here, because it creates higher levels of involvement, ownership, and accountability. Okay, but this is not the end of alignment. We still need to do alignment within the teams, right? What we call the East-West alignment. So this is nothing but teams having structured conversations around their priorities and around their dependencies and try to solve them and set the priorities and understand trade-offs and what we do. And we actually, with this, enter the shared OKR space where teams sometimes share an OKR instead of having their own. They have a shared OKR with another team. And then it's time, after the alignment is done, it's time to share the final OKRs. So both the company and the team's OKRs are published, a final version, in a place that's visible to the entire company. And that's important to bring the focus, the alignment, and the transparency that we talked before.
The next stop is checking progress. So at this moment, we're started with the work. We use this catchphrase of OKRs are guiding lights. So they are here to help guide us move forward. We should review them often as possible and use them to inform our decisions and next steps. So to be able to achieve that, it's really important that there is support on facilitating check-ins. Okay, so the OKR check-ins are kind of similar to what you think about the stand-up, but for OKRs. Make sure, it's really important that we make sure they are done on a weekly or bi-weekly matter. But don't use them to just update numbers. Okay, there's the metric part of OKRs. They need to be, so we need to update the numbers. That's not what I'm saying, but it's about having a thoughtful conversation to discuss the direction that's needed towards our objectives. Teams should be coached to become autonomous. So give the team coaching by facilitating first, then observing, and then coaching back so that they become autonomous. It's really important that we try to give them tools needed for them to be able to facilitate it themselves. It can be templates, it can be cheat sheets, can be infographics, whatever helps, even a proper OKR tool that helps them do these check-ins more easily. And in the end, we need to remember that building muscle is hard. I can tell you about it, but coaches need to be with the teams until they form an habit. So building this muscle and forming habits, it's hard. Okay, it will take time. So don't get frustrated along the way. That might happen, but I'm sure that you can achieve it with perseverance and the right tools and mindset.
Okay, so reflection is also key. So reflection is built out of review and retro. Okay, so by review, we mean that it usually takes place at the end of a cycle, and we will, so each team and the leadership team also will look at the OKRs and try to understand which ones were achieved, which ones weren't, why they weren't achieved. And this insights can then help teams prioritize better in the future and give better OKRs in the future. And then the retrospective. So the goal of the OKR retrospective is to focus each team on creating a list of concrete actions for improvement based on what they learned. So both review and retrospective should be done before setting the next cycle OKRs. And we should look at what went well, what will we do differently. So we should take the learnings that we have and incorporate them into the next OKR cycle. So how do we do this? We did by facilitating reflection workshops with the executive team and pilot team. We kind of try to have the teams or to facilitate this with the teams for at least 2 cycles, because that's what we understood that it's helpful. And then, we all know that learning is very important. And we don't learn from experience only. We actually learn from reflecting on that experience. So this exercise is really, really important. But it's not the end of it, right? Because we need to document the learnings, about what worked, what didn't work. So we can look back and not make the same bumps, or remember what worked and use it again. And then, it's really important that we share the learnings that we had across the company so that other teams can benefit from our experience and from our findings.
So repetition is key. Sara already
previously mentioned this, but in order for us to achieve mastery or the expected mastery, we need to share information. So we need to over and over again share across different channels. So all hands, internal newsletters, Slack, Teams, whatever you use. It's really important to reinforce the information around the OKRs and how are they moving along, especially at the company level. Facilitated workshops. So as we mentioned, include more and more teams in each cycle. So you let teams with more experience do the OKRs on their own, and then you can get new teams to help out. One of the techniques that we use is self-service templates, especially when they are becoming more autonomous, so that they still have some support, but it doesn't mean to be a person at that moment. Another step is the executive workshops need special attention, okay? If the OKRs at the top aren't improving, the program has some danger. So this is by far the most important workshop or session that you can ever do on OKRs. And it's the more time-consuming to do. We can share a couple of techniques actually taken from Bruce's book, Using Shuttle Diplomacy. So talk with executives first, prep the session well, check for alignment and directions on the expectations of the session, of this session. And just a tip, a lot of times these sessions aren't about OKRs at all. And OKRs end up being an outcome of the session. So it's important that you have this mindset that you need to possibly talk about other things to get to the OKRs. That's the strength that OKRs will have. And building them is hard, okay? As the muscle that we just talked. So the number of cycles that it might take, there's not a formula for this, okay? It will depend a lot from the culture of the company, the speed of embracing it, that it's possible. And the culture when we're talking is the willingness to embrace changes, transformation of what might be needed, because OKRs will pop up several issues along the way.
Also, another step is that pollination is key. So we need to, provide OKRs training for the entire company. So everyone in the company needs to understand what are OKRs and why are we using it at a company level. Then one of the strategies that we implemented was to have OKRs training on onboarding. So all newcomers undergo OKRs training so that they understand, how we do it at NewStore and what is fundamental to understand about OKRs. Then communicating progress. So making it visible for everyone, making it visible in different channels. In the case of company OKRs, using the town halls or other means to share what is happening. It is very important that the people are aware of how progress is going. And then, communicate as often as you can. As I already said, communication is a big key step here. You can use different means to share. You can share tips, tricks, as Nuno said, cheat sheets, templates, to make the life of the people using OKRs a little bit easier. And, especially for coaches, you need to understand that you cannot be everywhere. So this can be a way to spread more knowledge. And you should always, try to make the content as punchy and snappy as possible so that it is interesting for the people reading it.
So don't expect that OKRs are a silver bullet. It will take time, as a transformation doesn't happen overnight. It needs perseverance and willingness, apart from experimentation. And this is seeming a bit like a recipe, but not to say the right mindset too, because things need to change and start happening. So if you are expecting that OKRs will create quick results, don't use them. OKRs are simple, but not simplistic. OKRs will end up, as I previously said, uncovering a lot of things that it's
And that's when it becomes a bit more tricky. Culture, the company culture has a lot of impact on OKRs. And if you have a culture where experimenting and failing is not an option, again, don't use OKRs. And it's definitely not a magic formula. You have to adapt to what are the needs of the company, what fits best. So don't expect that even not only has an OKRs coach, but if you jump from one company to the other, that all the same things that you did on company A will actually work on company B. We like to use the sentence that there is actually more than one way of doing OKRs, and we need to be prepared for it. There are a couple of things that are common ground on possibly what is an objective, what is a key result, but the less you'll have to learn and adapt. And it's really important, as Sara mentioned, that we learn with each OKR. This doesn't mean not reaching them never. This is why it's so important to do check-ins and especially reflect and retrospect. We should not skip that step too. The goal of this is for continuous improvement's sake. For we all want to get better at what we're doing.
But if you think that, this was our 10 key steps journey, it was not an easy one always. We did find some roadblocks, and we want to also share them with our experience. So the first, and I would say the biggest roadblock that we faced is that OKRs are based on outcomes and outcome thinking. It's really important to help teams understand, how to think about the business impact of their work. And this is actually something that we struggled with. It's a mindset change. And so it's really important that we do it. But as Nuno said, there's not a silver bullet to teach this. So it's not quick results. We need to be very patient and invest a lot in trying to understand and move the teams towards outcomes and not outputs. Okay. The other thing that we also heard a lot is this OKRs thing does not work. Let's move on from it. Okay. OKRs will be blamed, as Nuno said, for a lot of things, as they are a transformational tool. They will uncover some, inefficiencies, and they will uncover some dependencies. They will uncover some challenges, and they will probably be blamed for that. And so it might seem that they don't work, but actually by uncovering all of those things, we are helping the company, transformate itself and move forward. We also struggle a little bit with accountability, okay? And we understood that the more information we share, the more that we make accountability clear regarding OKR's roles, for example, or regarding, how the progress is, and, sharing more and more and more information about how things are going is helping with accountability. And we also, understand that leadership has a big role here. Also, teams where leadership thinks that the idea is to let teams identify a set of objectives and then look at them at the end to see if they fulfill them, actually struggle a little bit with moving to outcome thinking. So they always, focus a little bit more on the outputs that the team is generating and not the outcomes. And the OKRs kind of got perceived as a project management tool, those teams. We understood, and we said this, it's actually one of the steps. Executive team support is crucial for the success of OKRs. Okay. And there's a fun little story about this. When we were doing one of the executive OKRs, one of the executives was a little bit, kind of having mixed feelings about OKRs and the value that they were bringing to the company. And we kept pushing a little bit. We went with the workshop, and then at the end, when the OKRs, actually, when we draft the final OKRs for the company, he felt that they were so good that he actually became our OKR catalyst. And that's also not something that you probably will find in most books, but it's what we decided to call him, which is the person driving the OKRs, initiative. And he's now the executive responsible for pushing this cogwheel to be more functioning. And to finish, I'm Sara.
I'm Nuno, and we're both Agile and OKR coaches at NewStore.
Just a 30-second thing on credits where they are due. The slides have their, copyrights. They were created by SlidesGo. The template, the icons are from FreePic, and we used some photos that are attributed there. And, this is the finish for this presentation, not the finish for OKRs, not the finish line for OKRs at NewStore or any company, because as Nuno said, OKRs are a marathon and we need to keep on going to learn to improve. And remember, OKRs are guiding lights that guide where we go, and it never finishes.